Afield is presented by Gusto Hunting Preserve.
Welcome to Afield, a soul-grown podcast where we're leaving behind their traditional studio and heading into the heart of Alabama's great outdoors. I'm your host, Christiana Roussel. Join me for meaningful and adventurous conversations with artists, chefs, hunters, and more who all have a shared passion for conservation and shaping the life we live outdoors in the South. Hi, welcome to Afield. I'm your host, Christiana Roussel. Today we're sitting down with Native Habitat Project's Kyle Lybarger, and we're in Hartselle, Alabama at the Tabernacle. This is a pretty special spot.
Yep. It's a cool place. It's over 100 years old. I don't know how many exactly. I think maybe 110, 115 years old, but it's been here my whole life. So
really special place. And you walked me down earlier, and we got to see your Eagle Scout project that's still thriving there in the woods. That's really cool.
Yeah,
a piece of yourself here.
Yeah, and growing up, my neighbor was born here in the kitchen of the cafeteria. Yeah,
really?
And he played for like the 1956, I think, Auburn championship team. But like
I was not expecting to start like this.
Yeah, he was born in the kitchen though. That's what he always told us. So.
Okay.
But so this place has been around a long time. It's always been like a place of community. I think people have always gathered here. So.
And you got married here.
Mm-hmm.
Really special place.
Yep. So it's a neat property, and there's caves, and there's a creek down below it, and lots of oaks and hickories, and lots of post oaks here, which is our logo for the Native Habitat Project. And
right.
So in the past I've collected a lot of post oak acorns from here and grew them and used them in different restoration projects and stuff. So
tell us a little bit, if people aren't familiar with what Native Habitat Project is, tell us a little bit about how that got started.
Yeah, so I started as a forester, and I guess prior to that I graduated from forestry school in 2017, and I was working for the State Fish and Wildlife as a laborer there at Swan Creek WMA, and then I got married, and Swan Creek wasn't cutting it anymore, and so I had to start working as a private forester, and so I started buying timber, working as a procurement forester. So I was traveling all across the state, sending out letters, knocking on doors, meeting with landowners, getting to see a lot of different properties every day. So I was getting to see a lot of Alabama's different geography and different plant communities, and so it's amazing how fast. If you look at a map of Alabama's geographical, I guess, and physiographical regions, like there's so many of them, and you could travel 10 minutes and be in like 3 different physiographic regions. So in each of those regions, the plant communities change, and so I was seeing different plants, and I was just trying to identify them constantly. Like, well, I don't know that one yet. I feel like I should know that one. I have a college degree. I feel like I should know what that is, and I don't. So I started identifying those plants. I started finding rare stuff. So I would post those to Facebook, just photos every week. I'd do like a photo dump of all the different wildflowers I saw that week. Eventually, Dwayne Estes with the Southeastern Grassland Institute was like, hey, keep an eye out for Porter's goldenrod. It was seen in Alabama in like 2003, but the population got destroyed, and there's only one population we know of in Tennessee. And so I went and saw that population and ended up finding Porter's goldenrod like a mile from my house.
Really?
Here in Hartselle, in the city, in the city limits, and so
you didn't know what you were looking for, and then you found out.
Yeah, I found it, and it was S1G1, so like the rarest plant ranking that a plant can be, and still the rarest plant I've ever seen and found. And so it was thought to be extirpated from the state, and now it's not. And since then, there's another population in Morgan County as well, but so there's 3 populations of it, and so. That's kind of like, that's one story of like dozens and dozens of rare plants that I've come across that I then knew about. So I'd get home in the evenings and I'd be like, well, no, it's just me and the landowner know about this plant, this rare plant population. Like there's nobody to call to start managing this population to make sure it's not decreasing and then lost forever. So I started managing those places just for free for the landowners. So I would do prescribed fire, I'd remove invasives or open up the canopy, and so we were improving these populations, and dozens of them here in Hartselle alone. We had like the Hartselle sandstone barren. We had some rare prairies that had like light poppy mallow in it, and several other rare plants, and then limestone barrens, and different savannas and large prairies, a lot of roadsides with really rare stuff. And so we're managing those places for free. And I just decided to start making videos about those plants and how we're managing those places. And then through social media now, we still manage those in a lot more rare plant populations, and we've kind of used social media as a way to continue that work and also educate the public on these plants and
Were
why
you
they're
surprised at how well the social media took off?
important. Yeah, because it was like, I remember it was during the winter, during the dormant season, and I was like, as soon as it greens up, the first thing that flowers, so spring ephemerals, I'm going to go to this spring ephemeral spot and I'm going to start making videos about them. And I think I made 2 spring ephemeral videos, and then I made one about my landscaping in front of my house. I was going to rip out all the non-natives that were there and replace them with native species. And that video had like 10,000 views or something. And it was like pretty much almost immediately took off. And I was like, wow, I was not expecting that. But
What do you attribute that to? Like, why do you think that people watching a guy from Hartselle re-landscaping his front yard got 10,000 views?
yeah, my mom says it's my good looks, but or my humor. But no, I think it's because nobody was talking about it. It was something that nobody talks about, and that's
Yeah.
what people like to learn about.
And you do
People don't
it
wanna-
kind of short clips too.
Yeah, it's fast and it's quick, and you're learning about your surroundings in just a minute. In 60 seconds, you're learning something new about your surroundings. And that's what I get from every time I walk in the woods. I might take a 10, 15-minute walk, and I always try to learn something new during that, so I can kind of, squish that down into 60 seconds and teach people about something that it took me, it might have taken me a while to figure out and learn. And there's nobody else talking about that stuff in Alabama. Like, you could look up prairie and grassland information, and it was all Midwestern states, but we have more diversity here in the South. Like, our prairies are more diverse and there's more to show off. And so there wasn't anybody doing it. And I think I just filled a niche that wasn't filled. And it's something that people were interested in.
Well, and I think you talk about it too in a way that isn't wonky, that it makes it more accessible to people. I think you make it also really accessible. I mean, when I look at you, I'm like, I could run into you at Tractor Supply, but like, I might not know that you know all this stuff. So you putting it out there is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I guess I don't look like a guy that would be interested in flowers, and
No.
that probably has something to do with
Yeah.
it. So,
But I will say sometimes when I watch your videos, I definitely have to like pause and write things down. I need like a glossary for some of the terms that you bring up, like
yeah.
ecosystem engineers.
Yeah.
What's an ecosystem engineer?
So like a bison, a beaver, a woodpecker, a elephant, and like any animal that like alters an ecosystem and acts as a form of disturbance.
Okay.
And
You had something recently about a pigeon?
Yeah, and so like passenger pigeons used to be ecosystem engineers, and so they would come in, they're in such large flocks, their roosting sites. There would be so many pigeons on a limb that they'd say it looked like a hurricane came through. They'd break the limbs off. And,
Really?
And then they'd also deposit their guano all over the ground, and if you've ever seen underneath bridges, like in the city,
yeah.
piles of pigeon poop, so that would just
So
smother.
pigeon poop is also called guano. It's not just bat
I think
guano?
so. I
Okay.
think
I learned
that's what
something
I've
new.
always called it, but
Okay.
don't hold me to that.
We're going to go with it.
But yeah, so either way, if I say it confidently, then it's true.
100%.
But,
All right, so the guanos act
yeah,
like a
so
fertilizer.
and it also kind of like it acts as like a mulch and like shades out, like kills out everything on the ground, all the nitrogen and nutrients in that poop, and so it kind of like resets the forest floor, and so that was an ecosystem engineer, and we don't have that anymore, so I don't know if any of that was ever studied.
Yeah.
But there's probably plants associated with those pigeon roosts, if I had to guess.
Well, I would imagine that whatever they ate and then they brought and deposited.
That true? Yeah, that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, one of your other terms that I learned was remnant grass. What's a remnant grass?
So a remnant is these post oaks behind us.
Mm-hmm.
Those are remnants, and so this used to be a savanna. It used to be an ecosystem that was managed with fire, and now, even though the canopy behind us isn't that open anymore, it's kind of closed. You notice there's not any young post oaks growing because because post oaks need full sun to grow. And so by looking at those post oaks behind us, they're a remnant, they're a relic of what was once here. And it tells us a lot about the plant community that was here before, because in order for those post oaks to grow, there had to be a lot of sunlight getting in here, and there probably was fire here as well. And so all that's left from this remnant savanna are the species that weren't mowed and they weren't removed, and so or died off. And so the longest living thing here that's left to kind of show us what this was and tell the story are these post oaks that can live 300 or 400 years. So
yeah,
and that's one of the reasons that was our post oak was the post oak leaf was our logo. But while we're on oaks, I just 2 or 3 years ago I came across actually it was like March of 2022. I walked this limestone mountain. I was looking for some Durand oaks because I discovered Durand oaks for the first time north of the Cumberland Plateau. And they weren't known to be this far north, and there's some mountains over here that are just solid Durand oak. They're also called bastard oak. And so I was looking at this mountain trying to find more Durand oak, and I found a oak hybrid that was a post oak. It was a mix of a post oak and a chinkapin oak, which are like my two favorite oak species. And I've sent that to like Patrick Thompson and Auburn. I sent it to a lot of people, and like it didn't have a name. And so recently we went to Kansas, and I was in the truck for 24 hours with our botanist friend Lee Kelly, and I was telling him about that oak, and he was like, I don't think that one's named. I don't think it's ever been documented or described. And so he got home and he looked at it, and then I took him up here and showed it to him, and he was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And he said nobody's ever described it. So he's writing a paper on it right now.
And will it be named the Kyle Lybarger?
Well, I don't know what it'll be named. I don't think it's not cool anymore to name things after yourself. But technically I wouldn't be naming it, so I don't know what he's going to name it. But either way, if I had to pick a oak to be named after myself, and if it was cool to do, it would be a post oak chinkapin
I think
hybrid.
you could make it cool. I mean, you made talking about plants and flowers cool.
Yeah, maybe, but we're trying to get away from that. I think a lot of the botanical and just the scientific world is trying to get away from human names. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. But it does make it memorable.
It does, but yeah, it was a really cool find, and so
yeah.
I thought that was pretty neat. So
in that forestry work that you did, one of the stats I'd read was that 90% of land in Alabama is privately owned.
Yep.
So in your forestry work, you had access to a lot of that private land, and you might not have been able to learn about what you learned about if you hadn't had that access.
Yeah, I think it's 93%, and like at places like right now we're on the split of the Moulton Valley and Little Mountain, and the Moulton Valley there's no public land in the Moulton Valley.
Wow.
So people just assume that public land is, our public lands in Alabama are protecting the state's biodiversity, and they're not. They're only 7% of the state, and they're usually large chunks in different areas. And in a lot of cases, we're missing entire physiographic regions, entire ecosystems that are super important we're not protecting. And so it's up to the private landowners to protect those places. And so that's what we're doing, is working with those landowners to make sure these places stay around for future generations. And in a lot of cases, I think those landowners are better managing those places than the government is sometimes, you know. I think they have more freedom to do what needs to be done to make sure that plant stays around. So.
Well, and I know you work with some corporations too, and if they're doing some big development and they can have some of their property have native plants.
I think that's our biggest risk to a lot of these. So like, because Alabama is mostly private land, that's why everything's moving here, because we have all this land that anything can be done to.
Sure.
And so that's a huge threat to our biodiversity in the state. But also the threat can be where we kind of make some changes and improvements. So like if a large development comes in and they're going to take 100 acres and the building's only going to be on 50, then maybe the other half, maybe the marginal areas, the stormwater stuff, the little areas that they didn't build on, maybe those could be really nice native ecosystems, And I think in a lot of cases, those places could be turned into better ecosystems than what was there before they developed. And so that can kind of become an example for development in the future to do things better and take a different route. Instead of taking 100%, maybe take 70% or 50%, however much you can, but at least leave something, and I think that's something that should be replicated. And we're not working with any residential developers, but I think that's something that should be incorporated into residential developments as well, to make sure we have green space and high quality green space.
So you can show your kids and future generations what that native stuff looks like.
Exactly. I mean, 'cause we're still finding new species and stuff on these places. I mean, people think we know everything there is to know about these ecosystems, and we don't. There's still stuff to be discovered.
Right.
We're still, Lee Kelly, our botanist, had just discovered a new blueberry species on his property in Randolph County, and if that was a development, that species would have been lost forever.
Been gone.
Wow. And we don't even know what there is out there left to be discovered. I mean, we're still finding it. So
it's just like being on the moon.
Yeah. Except we're on Earth, and then we're looking at the moon and not looking here. So.
Exactly. So I love that the public-private partnership in terms of working with corporations to develop and maintain the native habitat on some properties they've got. I think that's really cool.
I think that's going to be huge for the future. Working in the timber industry too, people are like, how did you have a job, clear cutting forest, if you cared about those places? But it's kind of sad that people think the only type of forest management you can do is clear cutting, and that's bad all the time, because sometimes clear cuts can be the right thing to do.
Because it opens up the prairie. Yeah,
and so maybe development doesn't have to be 100% bad. Just like forestry is not 100% bad. You can come in and make changes, and that's what I was doing when I was working as a forester. Is sometimes I wouldn't do what was going to make the most money for the landowner, and the landowner was okay with that because their property was going to look better and be better afterwards, but they might make 20% less,
Right.
And
it's
so
stewardship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that should be done in a lot of industries, especially the ones that are known for being irresponsible. Those are the industries I think we should be working with to try to do things better.
Yeah.
More so than the industries that are already doing things a little green,
True. It's all part of the economic impact of the state of Alabama.
Yep.
Are you passionate about wild places and wildlife, especially our beloved bobwhite quail? Do you enjoy the thrill of the hunt and the beauty of the great outdoors? If so, it's time to join Quail Forever. Quail Forever is dedicated to the conservation of quail habitat. With the support of volunteers and members like you, we're making a difference, 1 acre at a time. By joining Quail Forever, you become a part of a community committed to wildlife habitat conservation and public lands access. You'll also receive our Quail Forever journal and a decal for your vehicle or travel mug. Together, we can ensure future generations experience the joy of quail hunting and the beauty of our natural landscapes. Whether you're an avid hunter, a nature lover, or simply someone who cares about our environment, Quail Forever welcomes you. Visit quailforever.org to learn more and become a member today. That's quailforever.org to be a positive difference for quail today. Working for wildlife since 1935, Alabama Wildlife Federation is the oldest and largest nonprofit conservation organization in Alabama. AWF is dedicated to the promotion of conservation and wise use of our wildlife and natural resources to ensure a high quality of life for future generations of Alabamians. Focused in 3 major areas of conservation, education, resource stewardship, and hunting and angling heritage, there are so many ways you can get involved with AWF today. To join, make a donation, or learn more, visit alabamawildlife.org. That's alabamawildlife.org. Switching gears just a little bit, I know you were talking about in your forestry work, and we talked about burns, and we wanted to talk about the importance of some people don't understand what a prescribed burn or prescribed fire is.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. First, I want to start with with why, like, so Alabama is like the lightning capital of the world. I think it's like Mobile or something. It's like the lightning capital of the U.S. But there was I think it was a study in 2022. There's like 790 lightning strike fires that were put out by, fire departments.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to there being fire departments, that's 790 fires that most likely would have spread, into the surrounding ecosystem
Sure.
and burn it off. So a lot of people think we're doing prescribed burns because it was an indigenous practice, but it was also a natural practice. Like, nature was doing that for itself
Yeah.
before humans were here. And then also, Native Americans were doing it to benefit themselves, to improve game hunting grounds. And so there's a quote in a book about North Alabama that says, if you look across the Moulton Valley where we're at now, or the Tennessee Valley, they were vast prairies, vast open grassy fields. They weren't using words like prairies. They were calling them like pastures and stuff. But back then, a pasture would have been nothing but native grass.
Sure.
So there's these vast open pastures, sparsely scattered with low gnarled oaks, and these low gnarled trees were low and gnarled due to the annual fires lit by the Native Americans to consume the tall grasses. And so they were talking about the Native Americans burning these places off every year to consume the tall grasses, and in turn that was creating the type of ecosystem that was beneficial for the species that they wanted to hunt, and everything, deer, turkeys, rabbits, quail were everywhere. We had bison. There were prairie chickens here at one point. I mean, there's a cave along the Tennessee River that has prairie chicken bones in it that were the people,
Really?
Native Americans were eating prairie chickens. And so, by the way, prairie chickens are even more dependent on open prairie than quail are.
Oh, wow.
Like, they can't have trees around at all. It needs to be wide open.
Really?
Like no trees, treeless.
And are there still prairie chickens in Alabama? Or
No, there's in Illinois. There's like 150 left. There used to be 10 to 14 million of them.
Wow.
And that goes hand in hand with Illinois is the prairie state. They had 22 million acres of prairie, and now they have 2,500 acres left.
That's it.
Yeah, and they're still developing some of that 2,500 acres. Like,
wow.
We just lost Bell Ball Prairie a few years ago. That was a prairie protected in the 60s, and they put an airport on it when, they've lost 99.999% of their grasslands already. But anyways, now
we got
sidetracked.
Talking about prescribed fire. Prescribed burn.
Talking about fire and chickens and
so
Illinois.
Right. And so the benefits of a prescribed fire, prescribed burn.
So a lot of people think it's to clean up the woods or to remove debris, and that is part of it. That's some of what it does. But historically, a lot of the places where fire was already open, so there were more grasses and stuff under there already. It wasn't just a closed canopy forest. They weren't just cleaning up leaf litter. And there are benefits to that because it reduces risk of wildfire in the futures and stuff. But those fires promote open canopies. They promote biodiversity. They promote wildflowers and native grasses, and we have to have wildflowers and native grasses to feed wildlife. I mean, and if insects and wildlife aren't fed, then there's nothing. That resource is gone, and so that fire does a lot of things. And so, like blueberries, down in like Talladega, the huckleberries they call them down there, the low bush blueberries. The locals there they get mad, or they used to get mad when they stopped burning an area, because it'd be 2 years after a fire is when they'd have a huge low bush blueberry harvest, and if that fire wasn't there, then they didn't have that harvest.
Interesting.
And so fire has this chain reaction and that regrowth that comes after a fire is extremely beneficial for wildlife and for us.
Right.
And if you don't have that, then what you end up with is a closed canopy forest with a lot of fuel underneath.
True.
And that's when you get wildfires. And what a lot of people don't realize is these prescribed fires, they're fast, especially when you're doing them regularly.
Sure.
They're fast. They don't burn into the soil.
Mm-hmm.
You can, as soon as the flames go across, you feel the soil that's still cold.
Really?
Yep, because it's moving fast across it.
Yeah.
But a wildfire, where you've let tons of leaves and stuff build up over the years, that fire stays there and it burns longer. There's longer fuel hours. Those sticks and things that have fallen and accumulated, they burn for a lot longer than a grass. Like, think of how fast, like a handful. If you're trying to build a campfire, you're not going to throw a handful of grass on there because it's gone in 2 seconds. You want to throw sticks and logs, and so if you've let sticks and logs and grasses or leaves build up in the understory,
that's a lot of fuel.
That's a lot of fuel, and that can burn into the canopy of those trees and also burn into the soil, down to the mineral soil. And so what you're left with is not the same thing that you're left with after a prescribed fire. It's a desolate landscape with no soil.
Right.
And so that's, people think fire is bad, but what they're seeing is wildfire, and those wildfires are the product of not having good fire
and proper maintenance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, I want to talk a little bit about, you were recently covered in the New York Times for your work. What was that like? How did that come about?
Well, that was pretty cool. Katrin, who did the article, she's doing there's 2 of them. They're doing the 50 states, 50 fixes. And their whole idea was like, man, all this, like in today's world, it's all negative, like climate, conservation, it's like all negative, wildfires, like, all this negative stuff that's happening, to North American ecosystems and to the landscape and to America. And so like they wanted to post, or they wanted to make an article, I guess, highlighting positive things. So like 50 fixes in 50 different states. And so Katrin had followed me, I guess, for a few years. And so she reached out to me for Alabama, and it was awesome. We met at Greenbrier restaurant in Madison and ate some catfish, and then she spent 2 or 3 days here, and we went around and looked at some prairies and put up some no spray signs on some of the roadside remnants, and it was awesome. And then last week I was in New York City, and they had this. I didn't know it was going to happen. I got there. And I got there late, so I wasn't in the auditorium listening to the speaker. And I was watching downstairs from a TV, and I was like, hey, great job. I saw her talk. And she's like, hey, meet me at the huge display of you. And I was like, what? What are you talking about?
No way.
So I got up there, and it was like this huge wall with like these huge screens on it, like highlighting, like, I think it was maybe not all of them, but like a couple dozen of the people that she'd met and wrote about. And
so the event was highlighting people she'd written about.
Well, yeah, just this display was. The event was about a whole bunch of other stuff, but yeah, they had this. It was in the New York Times building.
Okay.
And so then we got to visit, go up and see a lot of the Times Center and stuff afterwards.
Very cool.
And it was pretty neat.
I enjoyed following your posts on that, and I had to laugh because so many people that was your first time to New York.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, when they go to New York, they're like, I want to go eat at Balthazar. I want to go shop at Printemps. I want to go to Rockefeller Plaza. And when I'm looking at your feed, you're like, you found all the native plants in Central Park.
I was avoiding all those spots.
Yeah.
I did like 10 miles a day there. I visited all the good pizza places. I did do that.
Okay.
So not all of them. But
who had the best pizza?
I can't even remember the name. It was like, it was in the Garment District, I think. Mm-hmm. Because it was not far from that like needle and button statue they had.
Oh yeah.
But I can't remember the name of it. But that was a pretty good pizza.
So out of 3 days, and you had that many meals, how many times did you eat pizza?
4 times.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
My wife doesn't like pizza, so I eat a lot when I can. But
hey, it's a perfect food.
Yeah, but it was a neat, man. It was neat seeing those places and just totally.
And you
different.
went to a park in Brooklyn too.
Brooklyn Park.
Yep.
Went to Little Island.
Isn't Little Island cool?
Oh, it's so neat.
It's so cool. If people have never seen it before, they need to go. And it's easy to get to when you're in the city.
Yeah, it was wild. When I was at that pizza place, it was raining and all the seats were taken, and I stepped outside. I was just going to eat the pizza while walking, and a guy knocked on the window. He's like, hey, come sit down. So I went and sat down next to him, and it's like everything's so crammed in New York. Yeah. So I felt like we were like, I don't even sit that close to my wife when we eat dinner. And then he's like, he like pulls out some rolling papers, and y'all might have to cut this, I don't know, but he pulled out some rolling papers and like just rolled a huge joint and like
Seriously?
right next to me, and I'm like, this is the furthest thing from Alabama I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
a different type of herb.
And then I went to little island, which was like a pretty good walk away from there.
Yeah.
And I went in the bathroom, and that guy was in there. It was just me and him there. Like,
You
I
had
was like,
contact
is
eye.
this guy following me, or am I following him?
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know how often that happens in New York City to see the same person run into him multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
But that happens all the time in Alabama.
Sure. That's one of the reasons I love living here.
Yeah.
It's community.
But that was surprising. I was like, I wonder how often that happens. Being this big of a place, I just figured everybody hated each other and didn't run into you never run into the same person at the park. But I bet you it happens a lot more than I thought it did.
Because it's pockets and neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You stick to a certain area. So,
Yeah.
so
That
what
was
else
neat.
surprised you about New York? Was your message well received?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One lady was like, "What are grass lines?" And I was like, "Grasslands," and she's like, "Yeah, what are grass lines?" I was like, "Like the grasslands, like the ecosystem." And she's like, "Oh," and I still don't think she understood what I was saying, but
Did she hear grass lines and
Grass
you were saying
lines.
grasslands?
yeah,
Yeah.
grass lines, and so I had to pronunciate my words a lot more there, but it was
You
surprising.
needed some closed captioning?
Yeah, that's why I have to turn that on in my videos, I think. But it was cool to see how much, like, so, like, for example, like where we're at now in Hartselle, there's probably a lot more green space, obviously. Like, the neighborhoods have there's a lot more greenery and shrubbery, a lot more wild places. But you go to our city park, and it's just mowed grass. And you go to the city park or you go to parks in New York, and it's like a lot more nature. There's mowed grass, but it seems like they have a combination of all of it. And
You said that was one thing that they did really well there.
Yeah, and so I'm not saying that like there's more green space in New York City, because there's not. But when they had green space, they really appreciated it and like made sure there's a lot of biodiversity
And they did it
there.
the right way.
Yeah, in Alabama we just take it for granted,
We
and
do.
and our city parks are just like they're nowhere near as diverse as Central Park. Like, to think that Central Park is far more diverse than my park here in Alabama that has, we have 4,000 native plant species in Alabama, and our park here is like less diverse than New York City.
Yeah.
It's
But
crazy.
that's education,
Yeah.
right?
And so I think that's something we could learn from
could
New York
work
City
on.
and
Yeah.
start changing.
So if people are like, okay, they're evaluating their homes, their backyard landscaping or something like that, and they want to incorporate more native species, what's the best way to go about doing that?
Well, I think start small. Don't overwhelm yourself. I still have one, and it's been 5 years I'm at my house, and I still have one crepe myrtle to cut down, and before I have everything native.
Yeah.
But just start slow, start little sections at a time, and I prefer to. Well, I'll just say how I did it. Like, I'll just tell y'all how I got started. So I tried to find native nurseries. So we drove all the way to like Sand Mountain one weekend to a nursery that was supposed to have some native azaleas, and the native azaleas were non-native azaleas. And so I like turned around, came back home, and I was like, where am I going to find native plants if I want to put native landscaping in? And so I couldn't find any. And so when I was driving around working as a forester, I would just, if I saw a wildflower, I'd be like, okay, well, I know this roadside's covered in swamp milkweed, or this roadside's covered in oak leaf hydrangea or whatever. And so like I would come back in a few weeks, and I would try to collect the seeds from those plants, and then bring them home and try to grow them. And that's how I started. And I think there's a lot to that. I think that's how everybody should try to start.
But you have some other sources, aren't there? Some other nurseries who you've worked with?
Yeah.
Who have is it
Exactly.
creative?
Yeah, Recreative Natives. There's Grow Wild. We have y'all in Birmingham is a lot. Ruffner Mountain, Petals from the Past.
And they all offer native plant species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And Grow Wild in Nashville has a ton, but Recreative Natives is growing a lot over the past few years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She used to buy plants from my nursery. We had one in our backyard.
Oh, really?
2020, 2021. And then when social media, when I started making social media stuff, like I didn't want people showing up at my house all the time.
I mean, generally speaking, you don't want people showing up.
Yeah,
at your
you don't
house.
want people showing up at your house anyways.
Yeah.
But that's what I learned a lot about myself in New York City is I spend a lot of time alone. I didn't realize that. There's nowhere to be alone.
No, there isn't.
But
You need that to recharge, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go to those nurseries if you have them.
Sure.
But like for example, I have this coreopsis out in front of my house. It's this weird low growing coreopsis that spreads and looks beautiful in landscaping. Out in the prairie, like that there's a grassland like a mile from here. Out in that grassland, it's kind of just spread out and sparse, and it makes these little bitty yellow flowers. And I collected seeds from that instead of going to get lance leaf coreopsis. And I showed it to a botanist friend of mine. He was like, yeah, that's just our lance leaf coreopsis. It just has smaller flowers than the one you get from seed companies. And so I was like, okay, well, that's what I was growing. I even sold it at my nursery for years, or sold it here at the Hartselle Farmers Market. Well, come to find out, it's not lance leaf coreopsis, and nobody's been able to tell me what it is. And it's probably some new coreopsis species that
So
nobody's
it's the Lybarger
described.
coreopsis
Well,
species.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll probably name it. I don't know.
Be careful what you
yeah,
say.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I can name it, but yeah, there's that one deserves
cool.
that one deserves a cool name though,
Yeah.
because it grows really well in landscaping. But like, if I would have went to the store and got some coreopsis, which is pretty common, I wouldn't have had that. I wouldn't have this weird rare coreopsis growing out in front of my house.
Yeah.
So you only get that by saving little native plants off the side of the road and collecting their seeds. And
What's your seed saving system look like at home? Do you have like, I know
can
you
show
showed
you.
me,
I can show
you
you,
showed
but-
me like there's the bucket thing that you do for harvesting the seeds.
yeah,
But then do you have like bins and everything that they're all
I
labeled?
use Ziploc bags, and
Yeah.
once I dry them out, and then I have these huge, for large seed collections, I use this 30-gallon paper bags for leaves.
Sure.
And that's what I've got going now. But it's mostly Ziploc bags. So when I collect them in the field, I use these canvas zipper bags.
Okay.
I probably should make some like Native Habitat Project seed collecting bags.
I see some merch in your future for that.
But because that's handy, because I know myself, if I collect it in a Ziploc bag, it's not going to breathe. And those seeds are usually, there's moisture in there, and they'll mold and they'll get nasty. And so I know myself, when I collect it, I'm going to collect it in something that's breathable, because I know I'm going to forget about it. And so I put it in a Ziploc, or I put it in a canvas zipper bag, and then I bring it home, and then I'll sort it out and label it and put it in a Ziploc bag once it's dried out.
So like, would you have a bag of seeds and you'd be able to identify what they are if you bring them home at the end of the day? Or you just know,
Yeah.
I was in the field where there was this?
I can do that like a year, 2 years later even.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't know how I can do that. But it's like some sort of internal storage. But I don't even label them. But that's what, if I was to make a bag,
Yeah.
it would be a bag that you could put labels
Sure.
on. And I do have some that have like different colored zippers, like a blue zipper
Okay.
or orange zipper or whatever.
And you
so
can identify them now.
So as I have 3 or 4 bags in my pocket, are the orange one's this one, the blue one's this one, and so as I
That's
walk
just
through
the
a
way
prairie,
your
I
brain
can
works.
collect. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's how I do it, anyways. But I'm telling you, it's so rewarding. You don't have to do it that way. Get a bucket, go to some roadside, and just start throwing seeds in a bucket. You don't even have to keep them separated. You just mix them all together and then go home and throw all those out into a little corner or something and see what comes up.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, you don't have to put that much thought into it.
Yeah.
In nature, they're just, all those plants are making seeds, and then they're just letting them fall to the ground.
Right.
And that's all we have to mimic,
Right.
is what nature does.
So the things we need to eradicate before we can throw those seeds down, I know you have thoughts and feelings on Bradford pear trees.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, across from my house, there's a huge industrial complex that they bought 10 years ago, and so they don't care about it because one day they're going to level it all.
Sure.
But right now, it's millions and millions of Bradford pears. And those Bradford pears probably originated from the Bradford pear that was in my yard when I was a kid. And it didn't last long, it blew over. But that's probably where they originated from. And now that tree's taken over everything. You can't even let fields grow up and turn to forest or anything because it's going to come back an invasive species. And so
the Bradford pear is an invasive species.
Yes, non-native invasive. And it does not make edible pears. They're little tiny.
They're just purely ornamental.
Yeah, just ornamental, and they don't live long. They blow over. They're extremely weak, and they smell bad. And but we planted tons and tons of them in every neighborhood. And so at the time we were told they were sterile, but they're not apparently. So I don't have much faith in non-native species anymore. And so if you're asking yourself, well, what do I plant that is going to be okay? That's what my answer is always going to be: plant something native to your area, because then you don't have to. Then in 20 years, your kids are going to be saying, "Man, I wish Grandpa didn't plant that, that Bradford pear or whatever, or miscanthus grass that's now everywhere all over our field." Like, to avoid that in the future and to avoid future mistakes, which almost every tree disease we have in this country is because we brought over a non-native version of it from overseas, which
like
introduced
the
chestnuts and I think the elm and the ashes, like the emerald ash borer and stuff. Like, it was all because we were bringing stuff over here. And so we should be learning from our mistakes, and we're not.
Yeah.
You still go to a garden center and it's mostly non-native stuff.
Yeah.
And that has cost us a lot. That's cost no telling how much damage that's done to our country.
So to get rid of the Bradford pear, or say like mimosa, how do you get rid of mimosa?
I usually cut the tree, like girdle it, or cut the stump and treat the stump.
Okay.
My in-laws, when I burned at their place, it's like the whole understory comes back in mimosa after a burn. It's insane.
Pernicious.
It looks like a lawn of
Yeah.
mimosa seedlings.
Yeah.
But that one's not native. People think it's native. It's not. So that's one. It's easy to kill a tree. If you just want to kill one, just girdle it or hack and squirt, like, hit it with a machete and spray herbicide.
Oh yeah, so you did that in one of your videos. You like cut into the bark.
And then it's going to kill it standing, and it'll be maybe a woodpecker will use it or something. I don't know.
Okay.
But
yeah,
it'll eventually go away if it's a place you can do that.
Yeah.
If it's around your house, maybe you don't leave a dead
you don't
tree.
want it right there. Yeah, being close to your house. That's awesome. Tell me one of the favorite native species you've got that you love.
Well, recently, leafy prairie clover has probably been a big one. I had this idea, I guess, three years ago I had it for a while, but I was like, what if we had some artwork commissioned of a rare plant species, one of the rare species in the state. What if we had artwork commissioned of it and sold a T-shirt of that artwork, and which would then get the word out about this plant, and it would also raise money to conserve that species. And so the goal originally was to sell T-shirts and then use that money towards managing some of these private properties that have a rare plant population on it. And so I picked leafy prairie clover, and I went to the first property that had one population, and the lady moved here from California, and she didn't want to cut any trees, and we needed to cut some cedar trees to improve that population. And she was like, we're not cutting any trees. And so that one I tried, and that one was a no. And so I went to the next one, which is a 1,200 acre property in Lawrence County. And surrounding this property and in the interior of this property were 7 populations of leafy prairie clover. So there were 8 populations of it in the whole state of Alabama. This property had seven of them. Well, they were selling the property, splitting it up, and so I tried to get Forever Wild to buy it, and it took too long, and the property sold and split up. But we were able to sell T-shirts of leafy prairie clover, and we sold, I think, in total since then, from the leafy prairie clover shirt and other shirts we sell, we raised $100,000, and we're able to buy one of the populations, the healthiest population. It doesn't have the most plants, but it has the healthiest plants that do well every year.
Is that in Lawrence County?
In Lawrence County. And then we had people who were conservation minded buy the other ones, and now we have 6 of the 8 populations being managed with fire, canopy being opened up, and invasives removed. So 3 years ago, this is a federally endangered plant that was in Alabama that was not being managed. All the populations were dropping in size. Literally, one roadside used to have 160 plants on it, and now it has like a dozen because it was being taken over by invasives. And so in another 5-10 years, that plant could have been gone from Alabama, and now we have 6 of the 8 populations being managed, and they're growing in size and
do
expanding.
you credit social media with some of that
Yeah, I think
influence?
that's been the cool thing about having a platform is being able to use it, one, to educate people, but also to allow people who are interested in this stuff and follow us to work together, and all of us to work together to protect something that is really important and deserves to be protected. And by doing that, it's a federally endangered species. But by doing that, by focusing on federally endangered species, those plant communities usually have a lot of other rare plants in that ecosystem
that
as
are
well.
adjacent.
Yeah, and so this one has that. There's a lot of rare stuff there, and that's been really cool to watch everything benefit from this one project for leafy prairie clover. So,
do you have another one lined up? What's your next plant that you wanted to?
The next one's going to be Leavenworthia crassa.
Say that again.
Leavenworthia crassa.
Okay.
It's a glade cress, fleshy fruit glade cress, and it's only found in 2 counties in the world: Morgan County, where we're at, and Morgan County, Lawrence County, and Morgan County.
Okay.
And it's just super rare. Yeah, it's a glade cress. It's like it has the same flower. One plant will have yellow. One plant will have white and yellow flowers, and so it's like 2 different colored flowers. The plant, one species of plant can have 2 different colors of flowers, which is kind of cool.
So it's not pH driven or anything.
It's just weird. It's just genetic, I guess. I don't know.
I think we should save that.
But yeah, it's a cool one, and we got the artwork made for it already, and so that's gonna be the next one we'll do.
That's awesome. So people can go to Native Habitat Project.
Yeah, if you just watch our content, you should run across
see the links. Okay.
In the next month or 2. So.
Okay, awesome. I love sitting down with you today. I know this is a really special place for you, where you got married, and the last time you saw your dad was here.
Yeah. So my dad passed away. So I got married 2017, November 18th, 2017, and he passed away November 24th, 2017, and so. We used to come up here a lot when I was a kid. We also used to go pick pecans a lot all around Hartselle. And so I was on my honeymoon in Gatlinburg, and got a phone call. And him and my mom were downtown Hartselle, and he had a big cane pole knocking pecans out of a pecan tree, and just had a massive heart attack. And my mom's a PE coach, so she's been in athletics her whole life, so she's CPR trained and everything, and she tried everything, and it was just like that, just a huge, massive heart attack. And he was 52, real healthy,
Yeah.
He was.
Well, what would your dad?
He was 6'5". I'm 5'11".
What would your dad say to you now?
Oh,
about what you've done?
Yeah.
It's a long way from pecan collecting, huh?
Yeah, I think he would think it was awesome. So.
Do you feel him with you when you're out doing stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one who got me into nature and got me outside. I mean, he allowed me the freedoms as a kid to be outside and explore. So like, I remember we moved, and I guess I was 7 when we moved. I remember at our old house, I would just explore the woods by myself. And so I was like 5, 6, just walking around the woods by myself, hanging out and building forts and stuff. And that and him just dragging me outside, canoeing and hiking, camping, hunting, fishing, you name it. Like he's the one who drug me outside to do all that stuff and allowed me the freedoms to, as a kid, have a childhood where I was kind of feral. And so
that's pretty awesome.
That was, yeah. So I attribute him to a lot of that. And he was just a really good person and a really happy, like the happiest, nicest person you'd ever imagine. Like, people like used him as a scale for how nice of a person somebody was. Like, they're nice, but they're not Scott Lybarger nice. Like, he was just really, really the nicest person. And so he was a extremely good role model and a good father. And so
Maybe you
really
name one of
appreciate
those
that.
plants after him.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I named my son Walker Scott. So, and then so
And let him be a little feral.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have to let him. He just is naturally. So
Yeah.
he was outside. I made him put clothes on this morning when y'all saw him. So he's usually outside in
Thank
his
you
underwear.
for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I try to make him presentable sometimes, but it's hard.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And now you got the new puppy, Olive,
Yeah.
poodle pointer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
you got your hands full.
I do. And she forces me to get outside even more now.
Yeah.
So take her for walks in our meadow like twice a day.
Awesome.
So that's been fun.
Well, we can't wait to follow along. We'll look for you on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Patreon, Substack, YouTube,
Yeah.
all the platforms.
Yeah. Find
You're
us.
doing amazing work. Thank you.
Well, appreciate it. Yeah, thank
sitting
you.
down.
Thanks for having us on
That was
or having
awesome.
me on.
Yep.
To become a sponsor or supporter of a field, email editor@soul-grown.com or just send us a DM on Instagram. For more throughout the week, follow me and Soul Grown on social media. You can find me on all platforms at Christiana.Roussel as well as Soul Grown at soulgrown_Alabama. See you next time.